Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise on Nile TV International and the very special episode from the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. And right now we'll be focusing on the manuscripts and how they are being preserved during the past times at the museum. And I'm honored to be having with me today on the program Nagah Ragab Abu Saif, the head of the manuscript lab, and Mona Fathy Gawish, the specialist conservator of the manuscripts and the documents. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us in today's episode of Nile Cruise. And I'd like to start with Nagah or Mona, as you wish. Understanding what constitutes of manuscripts collection and how such materials are organized and described for pattern use is important to protect our history.
For manuscript is so sensitive and delicate objects, and now we are in universal museums. For us in manuscript labs, we delay with so fine and important object like date book, and now we are dealing and prepare for the exhibition for some papyrus of date book.
We have a lot of unique manuscripts in our lab. Okay, date of book is approximately 3,000 years BC. It's referred to 18th dynasty. It's a very, very important and unique manuscript papyrus because it contains a lot of items, like we have two types of inks, we have painting, illustrations, very, very important and very, we can say, I'm very impressive about the papyrus. It's very unique material. So this material is very sensitive. A lot of condition around, like temperature, sensitive, relative humidity, outdoor pollutant. So these materials needs to sensitive care. When I deal with this material or these collections about manuscripts or documents.
How many manuscripts or documents have you dealt with at the museum?
Nowadays, we are dealing with papyrus because it gets selected for the exhibition, and it will be put in the core gallery for the celebration of National Egyptian of Egyptian civilization next days. This papyrus from date the book, it come from El Tahrir Museum, Egyptian Museum in El Tahrir. It was stored for a long time in the cardboard, and we changed the way of displaying. That is why we have to remove this cardboard and not suitable materials used for storage. The first step for any treatment with and conservation waste for any object will be the documentation. The documentation for object. For us, when we do all our best to use non-destructive instruments and investigation instruments before the way of or the process of conservation. For papyrus, we get selected for this celebration, or we use the USP and digital microscope, electron scanning microscope, and we use also plus 3D scanning. All this, especially for these delicate materials, because we treat with so sensitive ink and organic media that used with the text, colors that used on the surface of the manuscript. For us, after documentation, we try to make analysis instrument to know what we are, what we have to do, and which type of ink we treat, because it will be the guide for us to select the way of conservation. After this, our process or our methods for conservation, it will be to how to consolidate this, to protect it at all the time, or procedures for conservation. For this papyrus selected object for celebration or opening, it will was to how to protect the surface of the papyrus, to remove the bad or bad material used for storage in so many years. For us, we did consolidation for materials suitable to the object, papyrus. After this, we use also started to remove these bad materials or non-suitable materials, and remove the papyrus from cardboard. After this, we changes the way of displaying material.
Muna, what are the challenges that faces you, and of course the delicate work that you face when you come to deal with any of this, of course, stuff that you...
Actually, we force a lot of challenge in this material because, as I say, it's very sensitive materials. So it's organic materials, hygroscopic materials, absorb the moisture from the air. So we have a lot of challenge. We have a lot of equations we must to do when I deal with these materials in the exhibition core or in the storage. Because we have a lot of papyrus in the storage, around 850 papyrus, and we will receive a lot of papyrus, and we have also a lot of Islamic manuscripts, illuminated Islamic manuscripts. This is a treasure, very, very treasure manuscripts, and the content of these manuscripts is very important to study. This content, because have a secret receipts about the inks, receipts about the dye or pigments, something like that. So we have to do a lot of sensitive dealment with this material, like we have to do data logger, control and monitoring the moisture, temperature, all the seasons in the summer, also in the winter, and the visitors.
What's the difference between summer and winter?
Of course, it's the weather, the
Yes.
different, and the condition system.
What what is the challenge that faces you in winter, and what is the challenge that faces you in summer?
Okay, the challenge in the winter, we have
Dry weather in the summer. It's the opposite thing.
condensation.
How do you react upon?
We have to do the control in the showcase. In the showcase, it will be special
Weather?
special for this, and we have to use an instrument like data logger.
Yes, controlling and monitoring the temperature,
this
relative
temperature
humidity.
for organic
Is it very high? We have to control the atmosphere around the object to control in the perfect relative humidity and the perfect temperature.
Exactly.
So in the summer, we have a different weather about the of the winter. Okay. Also the visitors. We have control the number of the visitors when
In the
they
summer.
yes, in the summer, when they in the course exhibitions. We have limited visitors, not a lot of, because to control about this data logger.
But for all this, we have to manage before we put the object in the showcase inside the gallery. We must to manage all this, and there is also for organic material or sensitive material, we have determined temperature like from 19 to 21. Okay, but for humidity we have to 45 to 55. For UV also, UV light, we have to manage for this. We must
50 lux.
no يعني fit looks. That is
So you have equipments that you oversee
Yes, for
all the
sure.
time over
Yes,
the
yes.
day,
For sure. And we-
24 hours, or
Yes,
or
yes, 24
We
hours
have-
and all seasons and every month we have some categories. I have to do, I have to connect to it.
to record for this, and
Yes.
it will be for
Preservation, conservation is the responsibility of preservation, conservation. This is called about the specialistic preservation, conservation.
That you're focusing now on papyrus because those manuscripts will be at the inauguration of the museum. What is the difference between the other materials from papyrus to the other materials that were used as manuscripts or were written upon?
the difference in between papyrus and the other manuscript, it will be for the material which used for to manufacture of papyrus from papyrus, natural plant, and for other manuscript it will be from paper, maybe from linen, from cotton, cellulose. يعني is different in between papyrus and other manuscript in the treatment. Maybe sometimes there will be, as I said, in the material which we used for manufacturing, and for papyrus, when you try to make sheet of papyrus, we have to make pages and to make joints in between pages. That is will sometimes will affect bad if it get dry. From, as we said, we must to adjust or make control for temperature and humidity, because these joints in between pages of papyrus will affect bad if we make it rolled, because of dead book. It was rolled and unrolled. After this, they try to make it unrolled and put it in cardboard. That is what we are suffering now.
so it takes lots of effort. What are the most important manuscripts in the museum?
Most important manuscript in our museum, I think it did book papyrus. It's a very unique object, and there are also illuminated Islamic manuscripts.
The Book of the Dead, it's not just about death or it's just about the afterlife. It's about
Yes,
the
yes,
rules
actually,
of
yes.
living or how the ancient Egyptians lived.
Yes, it will be the
Yes,
guide.
very
It will be
ordinary
the guide
papyrus.
for the dead, for the afterlife, or other life for the ancient Egyptian, about their thinking about other world, or another world. For dead book, it will be funerary text that will be guide him how to live.
Yes.
How to live after our life, how to live in other world, and it will be supported by like
Illustration painting.
oh no,
When it comes,
some guides of gods.
yes, to be
guides.
dealing with the God and
Yes,
how
how
he
to
will
deal
be
with the God.
going
Yes.
to hell or heaven.
Yes, yes.
Does this dealing with these books and these manuscripts interest you in terms of learning how to read the books,
Hieratic.
the hieroglyphic, the demotic, the hieratic, those languages?
Hieratic.
Hieratic.
The text is
Hieratic,
hieratic.
yes.
Yes,
That
yes,
is right.
Did
hieratic.
it interest you in learning those languages?
No.
We will
Because,
interesting
because it's difficult, or
Yes, very
because you're not
difficult.
interested?
Yes, yes.
because that
And
is not our
of
specialist, because already we are conservator. We have
Great.
to treat it and to keep it in good
Yes.
to good state in the storage area and displaying area. That is our specialist.
Yes, of course. You know, hieroglyphic text, just inscriptions. Rarely you found manuscripts written by hieroglyph,
Yes.
just hieratic.
Uh-huh.
And demotic is very rare manuscripts because it's a common manuscripts in the
So hieratic was the most
yes,
common.
the most,
back
yes,
then.
the most common, yes, of course, yes,
Especially
hieratic.
for religion texts, because date of book
For the
will be
priests.
it will be
Religion text.
religion text.
Yes. Speaking about the manuscripts themselves, especially the Book of the Dead, did it contain any pictures or paintings, or
Yes, yes,
is it
yes,
just
a lot.
about the words or the rules of how to live in the afterlife, or did it have pictures and paintings and colors.
Yes, a lot of painting and pictures about the other lives, including some ships, including some painting about the food, about how I pray with my God. Some pictures like that, or you can say illustration painting,
Yes.
like this.
And also
Yes.
some painting it in the boats to how to travel and from our life to afterlife to other life.
Understanding what constitutes a manuscript collection and how such materials are organized and described for patron use is important to protect our history.
Okay. Actually, we have to use modern instruments when I deal with this. Okay, all the types of our treatment started beginning with investigation and analysis department, and finally documentation.
Yes.
And finally documentation the manuscripts. Yes, we have we have used modern analysis, and the non-destructive analysis is very important.
Yes, Mrs. Mona Fathy Gawish, the specialist conservator of the manuscripts and the documents, and Nagah Ragab Abu Saif, the head of the manuscript lab. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll be switching to another segment of Nile Cruise on Nile TV International, so stay tuned.